Who was Hipparchus? What if I told you that the first detailed map of the stars was created over 2,000 years ago by a man whose ideas still influence modern science? This might sound like the beginning of a science fiction story, but it's true. The man in question is Hipparchus of Nicaea, one of the greatest astronomers in history, and yet, for many, his name has been forgotten. Long before telescopes, satellites, or sophisticated astronomical tools, Hipparchus observed the night sky with nothing but his eyes and his intellect. He charted the stars, measured their positions, and even uncovered the slow, cosmic drift of Earth's axis, a phenomenon we now call the precession of the equinoxes. So, who was this brilliant yet overlooked figure? How did he manage to map the heavens with such accuracy that even today, scientists marvel at his findings? To understand this, we need to travel back to the 2nd century BCE, to a world where the stars were not only seen as distant lights, but as the keys to understanding the universe itself. In the centuries before Hipparchus, the Greeks had already begun exploring the cosmos with a blend of philosophy and observation. Thinkers like Thales of Miletus and Anaximander were among the first to propose that the heavens followed predictable patterns. But it wasn't until the time of Hipparchus that astronomical observation became truly systematic. While earlier philosophers speculated about the universe, Hipparchus sought to measure it. Living during the Hellenistic period, Hipparchus benefited from the rich intellectual environment of the Greek world, where mathematics, philosophy, and science were flourishing. This was a time when great cities like Alexandria housed libraries filled with knowledge from across the ancient world. Hipparchus himself was born around 190 BCE in Nicaea, modern-day Turkey, but spent much of his life working on the island of Rhodes, where the skies were ideal for stargazing. The life of Hipparchus, though much of Hipparchus' life remains shrouded in mystery, historians agree that his contributions to astronomy were revolutionary. Hipparchus is believed to have been active around 162 to 127 BCE, and he likely conducted most of his astronomical work in Rhodes. His passion for studying the stars may have been sparked by an event that would forever change his view of the universe: a lunar eclipse. Legend has it that Hipparchus' interest in astronomy deepened when he witnessed an eclipse of the moon, realizing that celestial events could be predicted with mathematical precision. This revelation led him to devote his life to understanding the movements of the stars and planets. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who were satisfied with general philosophical musings about the heavens, Hipparchus wanted concrete data. He was one of the first to apply rigorous, systematic methods to astronomy, methods that remain the foundation of the field today. In addition to his astronomical pursuits, Hipparchus was also a geographer and mathematician, displaying a remarkable versatility in his intellectual endeavors. His love for precision and numbers would drive him to produce some of the most accurate astronomical calculations of the ancient world. What truly set Hipparchus apart from earlier Greek thinkers was his dedication to observational astronomy. Before him, many astronomers relied heavily on theory and speculation. Hipparchus, however, recognized the importance of observation and measurement in understanding the universe. Using the most advanced tools available at the time, such as the diopter, an early type of telescope, and/or Miller spheres, Hipparchus carefully recorded the positions of stars and planets. In fact, his star catalog, an incredible achievement for its time, contained over 850 stars, each meticulously measured for their location and brightness. This was no small feat, given that he didn't have the luxury of modern telescopic equipment. Hipparchus' catalog laid the groundwork for future astronomers, including the famous Ptolemy, who would later build upon this work in his influential text, the Almagest. What makes Hipparchus' observations so remarkable is their accuracy. Modern astronomers have compared his data with current star maps and found that many of his measurements were astonishingly close to what we now know, considering the limitations of his tools. In many ways, Hipparchus was centuries ahead of his time, practicing a level of precision that would not become standard in astronomy until the development of more advanced instruments in the Renaissance. It's safe to say that Hipparchus was the kind of guy who would have enjoyed an Excel spreadsheet. If only he had the technology, he might have been the first person to create a star map in digital form, ancient stargazing, now in a downloadable file. A defining moment in Hipparchus' career came when he observed a lunar eclipse, a phenomenon that sparked his curiosity about the mechanics of the heavens. He realized that these celestial events could be predicted, and this led him to further investigate the precise movements of the moon, the sun, and the planets. This was a major turning point in ancient astronomy. Using his observations, Hipparchus began to calculate the length of the solar year with remarkable accuracy. He also worked on developing a method for predicting eclipses and measuring the distance between the Earth and the Moon. His calculations showed that the solar year was approximately 365.25 days, a value incredibly close to what we now know to be correct. These discoveries not only solidified Hipparchus' place as a pioneer of astronomy, but also laid the foundation for future advancements in celestial mechanics. Hipparchus' work was not only groundbreaking in terms of its accuracy, but also in how it transformed the study of astronomy from a largely philosophical endeavor into a more scientific discipline. By emphasizing the importance of data collection and observation, he set a precedent for future astronomers to follow. His methods became the standard for centuries, influencing scholars throughout the Roman and medieval Islamic worlds, and eventually the European Renaissance. Hipparchus' recognition that the heavens could be measured and mapped marked the beginning of scientific astronomy. He was the first to introduce the concept of stellar magnitudes, a way to measure and classify the brightness of stars, a system that we still use today, albeit in a more refined form. He also made significant advancements in understanding the precession of the equinoxes, a complex phenomenon caused by the gradual shift in the orientation of Earth's axis. This discovery was so profound that it would influence astronomical calculations for millennia. The father of astronomy, Hipparchus, one of Hipparchus' most groundbreaking achievements was the creation of the first known star catalog in human history. Before his time, astronomers had noted general patterns in the night sky, such as the constellations, but no one had attempted to systematically measure and record the positions of individual stars with the precision that Hipparchus did. His catalog, believed to have included around 850 stars, meticulously documented the locations and brightness of these celestial bodies. Hipparchus' star catalog was not just a list of stars. It was a revolutionary tool that allowed future generations to track the movement of stars across the sky. For the first time, astronomers had a reference point, a celestial map that could be used to check how the stars shifted over time. This would prove essential for understanding one of his most significant discoveries, the precession of the equinoxes, which we'll get to in a moment. How did Hipparchus manage to measure the positions of stars with such accuracy? He used an instrument called the astrolabe, a device designed to measure the altitude of stars above the horizon. Combined with a keen understanding of geometry and mathematical precision, Hipparchus was able to achieve measurements so accurate that modern astronomers, when comparing his data to contemporary star maps, have found them surprisingly close to what we know today, especially considering that he did all of this with the naked eye. Picture Hipparchus out there under the stars, scribbling down measurements with an astrolabe in hand, probably muttering to himself, "Well, that star didn't move. Or maybe I need to get my eyes checked." Perhaps Hipparchus' most profound discovery was the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon caused by the slow wobble of the Earth's axis as it rotates. This wobble causes the positions of the stars to shift slightly over time. Over the span of centuries, the positions of stars in the sky will appear to drift relative to the Earth's equator, even though the stars themselves are not moving. This process takes roughly 26,000 years to complete one full cycle. Hipparchus discovered this by comparing his star catalog to records made centuries earlier by Babylonian astronomers. He noticed that the stars' positions had shifted slightly since those earlier records, which led him to hypothesize that the Earth itself was gradually wobbling, changing the orientation of the night sky. This was a groundbreaking realization and the first recorded instance of someone discovering the precession of the Earth's axis. This discovery was monumental because it not only provided a new understanding of the cosmos, but also introduced the idea that Earth's position in the universe was not fixed. This subtle motion of the stars challenged the static view of the universe that many ancient thinkers held and would eventually contribute to the broader understanding that celestial bodies, including the Earth, were in constant motion. Another of Hipparchus' great accomplishments was his calculation of the length of the solar year, or the time it takes for the Earth to complete one orbit around the Sun. Using his careful observations of the Sun's position throughout the year, Hipparchus calculated the length of the year to be approximately 365.25 days, an astonishingly accurate value for the time. This measurement was crucial because it allowed ancient civilizations to align their calendars with the actual movements of the Earth around the Sun. Hipparchus' work contributed directly to the development of more accurate calendars, including the Julian calendar introduced by the Romans a century later. His influence on the Roman calendar, and later the Gregorian calendar, cannot be overstated. The accuracy of Hipparchus' solar year calculation would go on to influence centuries of timekeeping, laying the groundwork for the precise astronomical methods that govern how we mark time today. It's no exaggeration to say that the calendars we use now owe a great debt to Hipparchus' calculations. While Hipparchus is rightly celebrated for his observations of the stars, he also made significant strides in understanding the movement of planets. In the ancient world, the motion of planets known as wandering stars was one of the most perplexing puzzles. The planets did not move in simple, predictable paths like the stars. Instead, they appeared to wander back and forth across the sky, sometimes even moving in reverse, a phenomenon we now know as retrograde motion. To explain this, Hipparchus proposed a theory that would dominate astronomy for centuries, the theory of epicycles. He suggested that planets move in small circles, or epicycles, as they travel along larger orbits around the Earth. While this idea seems strange today thanks to heliocentric models showing that the Earth revolves around the Sun, Hipparchus' epicycles were an ingenious attempt to make sense of planetary movement using the knowledge and tools available at the time. Hipparchus' theory of epicycles would later be refined and expanded by Claudius Ptolemy, who incorporated it into his monumental work, the Almagest, where it became a central part of the geocentric model of the universe. Although we now know that planets follow elliptical orbits around the Sun, Hipparchus' work on planetary motion was a crucial stepping stone in the history of astronomy. Hipparchus' astronomical observations also had a significant impact on how time was measured in the ancient world. His calculations of the length of the solar year were instrumental in refining the design of sundials, which were the most common timekeeping devices of the era. By understanding the movements of the sun and the shifting of the seasons, Hipparchus was able to improve the accuracy of sundials, making them more reliable for everyday use. Beyond sundials, his work laid the foundation for the development of astronomical clocks in later centuries. These clocks, which tracked the movements of celestial bodies to measure time, were direct descendants of the principles that Hipparchus had established in his study of the stars and the solar year. Hipparchus' contributions to timekeeping are often overlooked, but they played an essential role in the development of more sophisticated methods of measuring time, influencing everything from ancient calendars to the mechanical clocks that would emerge in the medieval period. If Hipparchus were just an astronomer, his place in history would already be secure. However, his genius didn't stop at mapping the stars. He also made monumental contributions to the field of mathematics, specifically in the development of trigonometry. While astronomy motivated his interest in trigonometry, his advancements in this area would become a vital tool for future generations of mathematicians and scientists. Before Hipparchus, the Greeks primarily relied on geometry to understand the world, and while they had made significant progress, they lacked a reliable way to calculate angles and distances for celestial bodies. This is where Hipparchus made his mark. He was the first to systematically apply trigonometry to astronomy, providing a mathematical framework for measuring the distance between stars and planets and calculating their positions with unprecedented accuracy. In short, Hipparchus needed a way to calculate the angles of triangles formed by points in the sky, triangles whose sides were the distances between celestial bodies as seen from Earth. This is how he began to lay the groundwork for what would eventually become modern trigonometry. Hipparchus' greatest contribution to mathematics was his creation of the first known trigonometric table, known as the Table of Chords. This table allowed him to solve problems involving angles and distances by referencing a list of known values, which related the length of a chord, a line segment joining to points on a circle, to the angle subtended by the chord at the center of the circle. This might sound complex, but in essence, it was the precursor to the sine function used in trigonometry today. The Table of Chords was groundbreaking because it provided astronomers and mathematicians with a practical tool for solving angular problems without relying solely on geometric construction. Instead of having to draw and measure every single triangle, astronomers could simply look up values on the table and apply them to their observations. This innovation significantly streamlined the process of calculating distances and angles in astronomy. Hipparchus' Table of Chords was likely based on dividing a circle into 360 degrees, the same system we use today. His table allowed for the calculation of chords corresponding to various angles, making it a powerful tool not only for astronomical observations but for geometry and other fields as well. This was the beginning of a systematic approach to angle measurement, which would eventually evolve into the sine and cosine functions we know today. Imagine ancient mathematicians finally getting their hands on Hipparchus' Table of Chords and breathing a sigh of relief. Oh, think the stars. No more measuring triangles by hand every time we want to solve an equation. One of Hipparchus' most impressive feats was his application of trigonometry to calculate the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Using his Table of Chords, Hipparchus could measure the parallax of the Moon, that is, the apparent shift in the Moon's position against the background stars when viewed from different locations on Earth. By calculating the parallax, Hipparchus was able to estimate the distance from the Earth to the Moon with remarkable accuracy for his time. But Hipparchus didn't stop there. He applied trigonometry to predict lunar and solar eclipses, using the relationships between the angles and distances he had measured. By understanding the geometry of the Earth, Moon, and Sun, Hipparchus could predict when these celestial bodies would align to cause an eclipse. His methods were so advanced that later astronomers, including those in medieval Islamic and European traditions, built upon his work to further refine eclipse predictions. While his exact values for the Earth-Moon distance and his eclipse predictions weren't perfect by modern standards, they were revolutionary for their time. Hipparchus' use of trigonometry allowed him to make predictions that were far more accurate than anything that had come before. His work demonstrated how mathematical tools could unlock the secrets of the universe, something that remains true to this day. Although much of Hipparchus' work has been lost, His influence on future mathematicians and astronomers is undeniable. His use of trigonometric methods laid the foundation for later scholars, particularly those in the Islamic Golden Age, who preserved and expanded upon Greek mathematics. Mathematicians like al-Battani and al-Khwarizmi were directly influenced by Hipparchus' ideas and carried them forward, refining the use of trigonometry to calculate angles and distances with even greater precision. Hipparchus' contributions also indirectly influenced the European Renaissance. When scholars rediscovered Greek and Roman texts during the 14th and 15th centuries, they built upon the mathematical foundation that Hipparchus had established. Figures like Johannes Kepler and Galileo Galilei, who revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos, worked within a framework that Hipparchus had helped create. His work in trigonometry was particularly important because it established a mathematical discipline that would be essential for later developments in science. Without trigonometry, much of modern astronomy, navigation, and even physics would not be possible. It's impossible to overstate how important Hipparchus' trigonometric innovations were for the development of modern science. Today, trigonometry is a fundamental part of fields ranging from astronomy and physics to engineering and computer graphics. Every time an astronomer calculates the distance to a distant star, or a physicist models the motion of a planet, they are using principles that trace back to Hipparchus. Even though his original works were lost, the methods he pioneered were passed down through generations, refined and expanded by later mathematicians. Hipparchus' legacy lives on in every trigonometric equation, every astronomical calculation, and every technological advancement that depends on the careful measurement of angles and distances. In a very real sense, Hipparchus is the grandfather of all modern calculation-based sciences. Whether we're launching rockets into space or creating realistic 3D animations, we are standing on the shoulders of a man who lived over 2,000 years ago and had the foresight to connect the heavens with mathematics, inspiring future generations of astronomers. While Hipparchus' work in astronomy was groundbreaking in its own right, it was Claudius Ptolemy, the Greek-Egyptian astronomer, who would ensure Hipparchus' ideas lived on and gained prominence. Born about 3 centuries after Hipparchus, Ptolemy built heavily upon Hipparchus' observations, especially his star catalog and his work on epicycles to explain the movements of the planets. In Ptolemy's influential text, the Almagest, he essentially adopted Hipparchus' system of stellar magnitudes, a method for measuring the brightness of stars, and expanded upon it. But perhaps Ptolemy's most lasting contribution was his elaboration of the geocentric model, the idea that the Earth is at the center of the universe, and all other celestial bodies, including the Sun, orbit around it. While this model would later be replaced by the heliocentric theory of Copernicus, it dominated Western and Islamic astronomy for over 1,000 years. Ptolemy's star catalog, a cornerstone of the Almagest, was largely based on Hipparchus' earlier work. Although Ptolemy added to and revised some of the data, he consistently credited Hipparchus for laying the groundwork. In fact, without Hipparchus' precise observations, the geocentric model might not have been as mathematically sophisticated as it became under Ptolemy. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, much of the ancient Greek knowledge, including the works of Hipparchus and Ptolemy, was preserved and expanded upon by scholars during the Islamic Golden Age 8th to 14th centuries. Islamic astronomers and mathematicians working in places like Baghdad and Cordoba translated and studied ancient Greek texts, including the Almagest. Through these efforts, Hipparchus' work was kept alive and even enhanced during a time when much of Europe was in intellectual decline. One of the most influential Islamic astronomers to build on Hipparchus' work was al-Battani, who lived in the 9th and 10th centuries. Al-Battani refined the measurements of the solar year and eclipses, using trigonometry in ways that directly echoed Hipparchus' earlier methods. He even made more accurate calculations of the Earth's orbit around the Sun, improving upon the mathematical tools that Hipparchus had originally developed. The tradition of Islamic astronomy was instrumental in preserving Hipparchus' legacy. Scholars in the Islamic world continue to expand on the trigonometric methods that Hipparchus had introduced, particularly in relation to understanding planetary motion and celestial phenomena. Without this intellectual lineage, much of Hipparchus' work might have been lost to time. As Europe emerged from the Middle Ages and entered the Renaissance, scholars began rediscovering the ancient Greek texts that had been preserved by Islamic scholars. This reawakening of knowledge included a renewed interest in astronomy, and Hipparchus' ideas were once again brought to light. The most notable figure in this resurgence was Nicolaus Copernicus, whose heliocentric model of the solar system would eventually replace the geocentric system of Ptolemy. While Copernicus is often seen as the astronomer who broke away from the ideas of Hipparchus and Ptolemy, his work was still deeply influenced by Hipparchus' foundational observations. Copernicus referred to Hipparchus multiple times in his own writings, acknowledging the importance of the ancient astronomer's work in paving the way for more accurate observations of the heavens. The Renaissance astronomer Tycho Brahe also relied heavily on Hipparchus' star catalog to further refine his own observations of the night sky. Brahe, who is often considered one of the most precise observational astronomers before the invention of the telescope, admired Hipparchus for his systematic approach to astronomy. Brahe's star maps, which were some of the most accurate in the pre-telescopic era, were built upon Hipparchus' original work. Finally, Johannes Kepler, who formulated the laws of planetary motion, also benefited from the legacy of Hipparchus. Though Kepler's laws ultimately disproved the geocentric model, they were part of a scientific tradition that valued precise measurements and approach pioneered by Hipparchus more than a millennium earlier. When Galileo Galilei pointed his newly invented telescope at the night sky in the early 17th century, he was able to make discoveries that would radically change the field of astronomy. But one of the more subtle triumphs of Galileo's work was the confirmation of many of Hipparchus' ancient observations. For example, when Galileo observed the stars in more detail, he found that many of the stellar positions recorded by Hipparchus were remarkably accurate. The invention of the telescope opened up a whole new realm of astronomical discovery, but it also provided modern confirmation of the painstaking observational work done by Hipparchus over 1,500 years earlier. His star catalog, though modest by modern standards, was accurate enough to be useful even in the era of telescopic astronomy. Although Hipparchus lived more than 2 millennia ago, his influence can still be felt in many areas of modern science. Star catalogs, which are still essential tools in contemporary astronomy, have their origins in the work Hipparchus started. His discovery of the precession of the equinoxes continues to be a key concept in understanding the Earth's long-term axial wobble, which affects everything from navigation to the alignment of ancient monuments. Additionally, Hipparchus' work in trigonometry remains one of the cornerstones of modern mathematics. Every time a scientist or engineer calculates an angle, whether they're designing a building or launching a spacecraft, they're using the principles of trigonometry that can be traced back to Hipparchus' original table of chords. In a way, Hipparchus' work laid the groundwork not only for future generations of astronomers but for the entire field of scientific inquiry. His insistence on rigorous observation, careful measurement, and mathematical precision created a standard that still drives science today. The forgotten astronomer. One of the most significant reasons Hipparchus was forgotten for centuries is that very few of his original writings have survived. While we know that he authored several works, including detailed treatises on astronomy, trigonometry, and geography, the vast majority of these texts were lost to time. Only fragments remain, and what we know about Hipparchus' discoveries largely comes from later sources, particularly Ptolemy and his Almagest. In ancient times, written knowledge was fragile. Manuscripts were often made of materials like papyrus, which deteriorated easily. Fires, wars, and natural disasters could wipe out entire libraries of knowledge in an instant. The most famous example of such a catastrophe is the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, where much of the knowledge of the ancient world, including texts by Hipparchus, may have been stored. Many of Hipparchus' works likely perished in these kinds of incidents, leaving his contributions to be pieced together through second-hand sources. As a result, while Ptolemy cited Hipparchus extensively, his name became overshadowed by later scholars who had more complete works available for study. Over time, Ptolemy's contributions gained more fame, while Hipparchus' pivotal role in laying the groundwork for many of these discoveries became an afterthought. Although Ptolemy revered Hipparchus and credited him in his works, Ptolemy's own writings became so influential that they eclipsed Hipparchus in the historical record. The Almagest became the dominant text in astronomy for over a millennium, establishing Ptolemy as the most famous astronomer of antiquity. While Ptolemy freely acknowledged his debt to Hipparchus, later scholars often overlooked these references, focusing instead on Ptolemy's own contributions. In a way, Hipparchus became a victim of Ptolemy's success. Because Ptolemy's geocentric model of the universe was so comprehensive and widely accepted, the more subtle contributions of Hipparchus, like the precession of the Equinoxes and his star catalog, were absorbed into the larger body of Ptolemaic astronomy. After being overshadowed for centuries, Hipparchus' name began to resurface in the 19th century, thanks to a renewed interest in the history of astronomy. Scholars started to re-examine the ancient sources, particularly Ptolemy's Almagest, and recognized the pivotal role Hipparchus had played in shaping the foundations of the field. They began to acknowledge that without Hipparchus' observations and mathematical tools, Ptolemy's geocentric model would not have been possible. One of the key figures in this rediscovery was the German historian of astronomy Christian Ludwig Idler, who highlighted Hipparchus' contributions in his 19th century works. Additionally, Jean-Baptiste Delambre, a French astronomer and historian, emphasized Hipparchus' achievements in his multi-volume history of ancient astronomy, helping to bring Hipparchus' name back into the scholarly conversation. This reevaluation led to a broader appreciation of Hipparchus' work in both astronomy and mathematics. As scholars delved deeper into ancient texts and analyzed historical star charts, they realized that Hipparchus' data had been remarkably accurate even when compared to modern observations. Perhaps the most fitting tribute to Hipparchus in modern times came in 1989, when the European Space Agency ESA launched a satellite specifically designed to map the stars with unprecedented accuracy. This satellite was named Hipparcos, a nod to the ancient astronomer who had attempted the same feat over 2,000 years earlier with little more than his eyes and a few basic instruments. The Hipparcos satellite revolutionized modern astronomy by measuring the positions, distances, and motions of over 100,000 stars with unparalleled precision. The data collected from Hipparchus allowed scientists to refine our understanding of the Milky Way, providing a detailed 3D map of our galaxy. In a sense, Hipparchus' dream of accurately charting the stars was finally realized on a grand scale. This modern tribute to Hipparchus is a testament to the lasting impact of his methods. While technology has advanced beyond anything Hipparchus could have imagined, the fundamental principles he established, careful observation, mathematical rigor, and systematic cataloging, remain at the heart of astronomical science today. Today, Hipparchus is recognized as one of the most important figures in the history of astronomy and mathematics. His discovery of the precession of the equinoxes, his pioneering work in trigonometry, and his creation of the first known star catalog are all achievements that resonate through the centuries. His meticulous approach to observation and data collection set a standard for future scientists, and his influence can still be felt in the modern methods of astronomy and mathematics. Hipparchus' story also serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of knowledge. Had more of his work survived, he might have been a household name alongside Pythagoras, Euclid, or Archimedes. Yet, even without the survival of his complete works, his ideas have endured, passed down through generations of scholars, and rediscovered at pivotal moments in history. In the end, Hipparchus' legacy is one of perseverance. Though he was forgotten for centuries, his contributions have come full circle, recognized anew as essential milestones in the history of science. Whether through the star charts of Ptolemy, the calculations of medieval Islamic astronomers, or the precision of the Hipparcos satellite, Hipparchus' influence on our understanding of the cosmos remains profound. Hipparchus might not have imagined himself being rediscovered by satellite, but he'd probably take it as proof that his work really was out of this world.
By my side, intense, strong, no fear to face, nowhere to hide. Intense. I subscribe to this channel, click like today, because content like this just lights my way. Intense and slow.